Hello everyone, in today's episode we talk to Keir Wotherspoon. Keir is the founder of Lift Fitness Evolution, formerly the number one personal training facility in Durham until he made the emotional decision to close that chapter of his life. Keir has also been such an influential person in my life. He was my coach back at Lift when I began training around there when I was around 14 years old. He was also the co-host of the Lift Fitness podcast, which me and him sort of decided to do one day, and he continues to mentor me through difficult situations that I don't know how to navigate through myself. I'm also grateful for my time at Lyft since I've met so many amazing people, including clients and other trainers who I've worked with or have been coached by. Also, during the episode, I do want to apologise for my sniffles. I just forgot to take some antihistamines for my hay fever, and yet, safe to say, I severely regret it. But with all that aside, let's roll the intro music and get into today's episode. All right, so we're live. Hello, how are you doing?
Hello, Aaron. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for inviting me onto your new podcast. I'm
No
very
worries.
honoured.
It feels weird because when we used to record the Lift one together, it used to be like us opposite each other and stuff like that over in Lift. It's weird to be like sort of over Zoom, like sort of recording one now. It's just
And now you have your own, and you're your own host.
I know it's strange to think that the co-host is now the guest and the host, or the co-hosts even.
Amazing.
But anyway, we'll go straight into it then.
Cool.
So
Let's go.
we go all the way back, not all the way back to the dawn of time, but go to
Going to
the
say it
back.
could be here a while.
We go to the back to the very dawn of humanity, and then go forward from there. But but anyway, so let's sort of just set the scene for all the listeners. So, like quite a while ago, that you were in a factory job that you didn't really like, or you thought that was sort of like a mundane, or in a way, is that right?
Yeah, well, mundane's probably a good word to use. It was horrendous. To be fair, it was just in a position where I just didn't feel any purpose. I was kind of waking up and going to work. I've actually just done a blog about it actually, so it's quite fresh in my mind. But it was um, it was kind of every Monday morning was the same. I used to spend the whole weekend kind of out on the drink, and then Sunday I would be very down and gloomy and just miserable because I had to go to work on Monday morning.
Yeah.
Monday to Friday would just be a slog. It would be awful. Clock watching all the time. Come to Friday, you were excited because it was a weekend, and then again Monday would hit, and it was just, it wasn't a good time really.
The same loop as, like, have you seen that sort of, I think, nice that picture where it's like you're driving uphill Monday to Thursday and Friday, and then you're coming down the hill. I think there's a picture.
Yeah,
I'll try and pop it up somewhere, but
I know
just
what you
sort of
mean.
that would
Yeah,
describes that.
exactly that. Exactly that. You just kind of stuck in everyday motions, and you were just going through the
Yeah.
motions, and it wasn't a nice place to be really.
Hmm. So then, at this point, did you think that this was going to continue on forever, or did you sort of have a feeling that you want to get out of it at some point, or?
I've always known that I don't want this to kind of sound arrogant anyway, because I'm not meant to be arrogant in any way, but I always known I was destined to do better things.
Hmm.
I don't know what it was. It's just something I always thought I had. Probably the best way to describe it, I had something more to offer.
Yeah.
I knew that I had something I could offer other people. I always had a passion of wanting to help people in some fashion. And I never got that from working in the factory.
Say, so you had like an idea in which you wanted to leave, but at that point you didn't know where, like, sort of what you wanted to do or anything like that.
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I didn't really have any guidance. I didn't know what opportunities I had. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. I didn't know what opportunities I had available. The only thing I knew was I didn't really have a good education. I left school with five GCSEs, and my best grade was a D. I can kind of make all the excuses up on the sun. I had a brain hemorrhage beforehand. I could use that as an excuse, but top and bottom was I hated school, and
Mm.
yeah, it would have been the same scenario anyway. I just didn't like it. So I knew I didn't have a very good education. So I knew that I needed to up my education game, and the best route I thought possible would be going to university.
Hmm.
University equals education equals more opportunities. That was my logic at the time.
Yeah. So then what did you end up going to uni to do?
Sports science, because I'd always been, I'd done, say I'd done my personal training course. I'd done most of my personal training course, but I actually failed the exam 4 or 5 times.
Mm.
And again, what I did is I thought, I'm not good enough for this. So I just put it on the back burner and it sat there for years, probably 4 or 5 years before I actually went back to it. Um, so I had that interest in sport. I had that interest in fitness and health. So I was going to be a PE teacher. That was the main purpose, was to be a PE teacher.
Yeah.
Go back to uni, be a PE teacher, get a secure job. Education is, unless you do something really ridiculous, you pretty much got a job for life. Probably a good pension or a decent pension, so it made sense. And
Yeah.
13 weeks holiday a year, which sounded amazing.
And I was gonna say the holiday as well, because considering you only get like considering you get all the school holidays off as well, be ideal. But so forgot to mention, how old were you at this point when you started to go to uni? When you started to go to uni?
26. So when
26.
I made, it was 2000, it was August 2008. I remember it quite well because basically what I'd done is I quit my job, sold my house, and went to university. And at the time, I just met my then girlfriend, now wife, Claire. We'd been together for about, I think, a year. And we actually moved in together at that time. So it was August 2008, I was 26. But I'd
Yeah.
been in the factory for 9 years previous to that. And from day one, at the age of 17, day one, I absolutely hated it.
Mm.
I remember walking in on my very first day and thinking, I'm going to hate it here. And I spent 9 years there, 9 freaking years in a job that I absolutely detested. It's
Jeez.
mental when I think about it now.
So then, whilst we're back there, so what was the point in which you decided to sort of just take the leap and just sort of just to quit, sell your house, literally go to uni and stuff like that, and start on this whole different of a journey?
So there was a guy, he was called Alec, and he was one of my mentors at the time. And he was coming to retirement. By the time I actually left, he did retire. And I remember one day I was just there, and he was him and this other one of my other mentors. The two older guys were kind of, Alec was one into his 60s, and Bob was a little bit younger. He was kind of coming. I think he was just turning 60. Anyway, they used to have this war cry. We don't say war cry, probably cry for help more than anything. And it was all it would say is, "We're doomed. We're all doomed." And that's the whole thing they would say the whole time. Honestly, it was. I'm not sure why they said it, but I think it was to kind of bring some form of fun or something to the workplace because it was a miserable place to work.
Mm.
Um, and I remember I just looked one day and I looked up at him. And at the time when I thought about it, I was about 20, well, I was 26. I looked at him, he was in his 60s, coming to his retirement. And I was on exactly the same wage as what he was. I was on exactly the same wage as what he was, and he hated his life. He was like me, would wait till Friday so he could go and play golf the whole weekend. And again, Monday would start again. And I just looked and thought, nah, there's got to be more to life in this. There's got to be
Mm-hmm.
more to life than working in a factory up until the day that you retire. And actually looking forward to retirement. I wanted to be in a position where I didn't look forward to retirement.
Mm-hmm.
26, you shouldn't be thinking about, can't wait to retire. But that's
Yeah.
kind of where I was at. And that was my moment of thinking, there's nothing can be worse than this. So instead of just taking a little step, I thought I'm just going to go all out. Just do it. See what happens. What's the worst that could happen? Worst that could happen, I'll end up on the streets, which to be fair, probably would be better stuck in our factory.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I suppose you could probably always go back to a factory if need be.
Well, that's it. And that's the thing. I had a thing is that it wasn't just, I did have an apprenticeship in mechanical engineering. So I did have something to fall back on,
Mm.
but I was just determined not to go back there. That was my biggest motivator, was just, you cannot go back to there.
To
You
that.
cannot, doesn't matter how bad things get, you can never, ever, ever go back to that. That was my kind of rule at the time, never go back to that.
Yeah. So then, whilst you were at uni, did you work or do anything, or was it just purely sort of uni, or?
I know, I sold my house, so I knew I could fund myself pretty much through university.
Mm.
Um, that was the idea of selling my house. So I knew for 4 years I could manage life, but I still worked because I do like work, and I always have done. I've never ever been out of work since I started. Apart from when I quit my job and went to university, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, and I ended up working on the call center,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it was probably on par with the factory. I
Yeah.
was there for 2 weeks, and you were literally given a phone book page, and you had to phone people and give them all this spiel of this. I mean, I think it was actually illegal. I don't think you can actually do that, but anyway,
Mm-hmm.
you did. And I came back one day and said to Claire, I'm not going back there. No chance I'm not going back there. She says, well, but you need some money. I said, don't care. I said, I'll do anything. I'll go and sweep the streets if I have to. I'm not going back to the call centre. I said, it was just as bad, if not worse, than working in the factory. I said, at least working in the factory had some integrity. You know, you had
Mm-hmm.
this kind of qualification, you had a little bit of a skill. This was just, it was awful. You just sat there and you had to phone people, call people, and you weren't even trying to sell them anything. You were just trying to get information out of them. And it wasn't for me. I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was, I eventually booked up my ideas and and finished my personal training qualification, because I knew once I got that, then I could go into personal training, which is actually something I always wanted to do, but never had the actual guts to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I finished my personal training. I went and worked in a leisure centre. It wasn't a leisure centre. It was Slady Hall. It was a local hotel. Went and worked there as a lifeguard and gym instructor. And that was at the age of, I think I was about 20. That was the same year. I was 26, yeah.
Yeah.
So by the time Christmas that year come, I was working as a lifeguard and gym instructor.
All right. And then, so did you continue out throughout? Did you continue with that throughout sort of the rest of your degree, and then?
Yeah, so that kind of, I was there for 4 years. That pretty much seen me until the end of my degree. But over that time, I started actually working as a personal trainer. I had a couple of clients. I was actually traveling over to Gateshead. So from where we live, it's probably what, about 13, 15 miles away.
Yeah.
Training somebody there and traveling back. It was actually taking us 3 hours out of my day to go over to Gateshead and train this lady at 5:30 in the afternoon as well, in the evening. So rush hour traffic.
Yeah, literally in the
She didn't
middle
have
of
any
it.
other times. Yeah, unless I went to her house at 9 o'clock at night, I had to go at that time because she worked 9 to 5. Um, and I used to work on a morning, or I'd be at university, so it had to be on a night time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was traveling to someone's house with all the equipment in the car to go and train her, which I didn't mind because I actually enjoyed it. You know, this lady lost, she got in really good shape, and to me, it wasn't about the money. It was about, I mean, money helped because I needed it. I was a student, but it was more about the results that she got, and that was
Mm-hmm.
my first taste of, wow, I've actually helped someone change their life or change things around. And it was a really, really good feeling that you can never put a price on. And probably
Yeah.
at that point, I was like, this is more for me. I need something that's rewarding.
Mm-hmm. More rewarding rather than just sort of financially, because like it's sort of secure in a way. More so, just literally, you felt really good doing all these different stuff and helping people and whatnot.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you know, yeah, and again, the money was important. Of course, it has to be important because you have to
Oh.
live. But
Mm-hmm.
it was that fact that you had the ability to transform that person from being, you know, maybe not as confident and a little bit weighty to a lot healthier with a lot of confidence. And it was just, you know, it's just a transformation you can never sort of per se, you kind of put a price on it.
Yeah. So then let's go to the point in which, so once you'd finished your degree and stuff like that, what did you end up going on to then? Did you end up going on to being a PE teacher at any point, or?
And I actually I done a placement in a school. It's actually, I think you went to that school. Did you go to Anfield Plain School?
Yeah, and yeah.
Tanfield.
Oh yeah, yeah. I went to
Yeah.
Tanfield. Yeah.
Well, I did a placement in Tanfield, which at the time, I mean, how old are you now? You're 18.
18. So what years was this?
Would have been, I'm going to say 2012, 8, 9, 10, 11. It was either 2011 or 2012. Can't quite
I
remember.
started in 2013.
So I would have been, you wouldn't have been there then.
Yeah, so
Oh, yeah,
literally,
that makes me feel.
if I was born a year earlier, we would have both been in Tanfield at the same time. But from the point of view of me just starting secondary school and you as sort of a on teaching placement.
Shit, man, that makes me feel really old. Makes me feel so old. Yeah, but I done a placement at Tanfield, and it was good. I enjoyed it, but I didn't get that buzz from it. It was. I knew if I'd done it, it was something that I would have just went through the motions again, and I couldn't do that. I needed to find something that I got something from. So I kind of knew then that I didn't want to do it. But at the time, I was actually training in a local gym, and it was a strength conditioning gym. Spartan Performance. It's still kind of around now.
Yeah.
And I was training there at the time, and the guy who owned it, Jack, he knew I was at university. He was taking quite a bit of interest because I had a couple of clients, and one of my clients in particular was an athlete, and Jack's gym was based around sort of athletic training. He trained a lot of fighters, a lot of athletes. So he was interested in what I was doing. And eventually I kind of ended up getting a job there, and was working there. And that's when I kind of realized it was just like, yeah, this is for me. This is what I want to do. I want to be in this industry and make a difference in people's lives. And yeah, that's kind of where it went. So it was from being a gym instructor, lifeguard, had my own clients, to working actually in the strength and conditioning facility.
Yeah. And then, so how long did you, because then, so what year was this around? Sort of.
2000, what were 2020 now, 2020. It must have been 2012. I'm going to say 2012 that I think it was I qualified at university. 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, 2012 when I first started. I think it was October when I officially started, 2012.
Yeah. And then, so how did that feel like? What was that like, sort of working in this sort of, because it is I don't know if it was the size that it was back then, but seen from the photos and stuff like that, it was quite a good sized gym.
Well, the size of the facility now is like 10,000 square foot. I mean, it's a huge facility now. It was like it was his third facility, and it was about 6,500 square foot. It was a massive size, but it was just amazing because it was just when you've kind of done when you kind of realize you're in somewhere. Like when I was in the factory, I realized nothing could be worse than this. Everything from there was just better. When I worked in Slaley Hall, that was amazing. It was just like the difference was just so different because the work was different, the environment was different. You could talk to people. Part of your job was having conversations with people, which if you talk in the factory, you used to get penalized for it. So it was a completely different working environment. But again, you adapt to those environments, and then you do need to start progressing. And then when I worked at Spartan, again, it was just a totally different experience. It was amazing. You were doing something you enjoyed and getting paid for it. It was just, you just couldn't put you just couldn't put a price on it because you were just doing something that you're getting paid for and you loved it.
Every time that you woke up and sort of were like, oh, work, like, oh yes, I actually really enjoy it, and like stuff like that.
Yeah, it wasn't work. It was just, don't get us wrong, it had its downsides, like everything has, but yeah, it was amazing.
All right. So then at this point, did you keep in contact with any of the people from the factory at this point, like sort of friend-wise, or?
Not really. I just kind of went in a completely different direction. Thing is, with the factory work, it was, these guys were family guys at the time, a majority of them. There was a few of us who were younger, but I was actually one of the youngest there at the time. I'm saying one of the youngest. There's probably about a handful of us who were sort of, like, the apprentices would come through. At the time when I was there, I was the one who would look after the apprentices. Probably because I was a terrible engineer, but I was actually a good mentor. So it actually allowed me to look after the apprentices, which was quite good. I actually enjoyed that. But there was like a handful of us around that sort of age, between the ages of 16 and 26. Everybody else was quite old. They'd been in the industry for a long, long time. They were family men. They had different interests. So there was no reason to sort of keep in touch with people. Don't get us wrong. I mean, we live in a small town, so I do see people and still have a bit of crack with them and, have a bit of conversation. But in terms of keeping in touch with us friendship-wise, I haven't done that, no.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, like, say, what have they sort of, have you had any sort of like messages of them being sort of like, or like any sort of, I don't know where I'm going with this, but sort of, have you had any sort of comments where it's been like, oh, like free personal training and stuff like that, or anything like that, or like sort of where they've give you a bit of stick? I think is probably the best way of sort of.
No, not really, because I've always been one of these people, when I've got something in my mind, I'll do it. And everybody's always sort of respected that because it's something I've always done. It's always been the case of more house things, or how you getting on. I haven't seen you for a while, as opposed to giving us any stick because of what I was doing. I've always been quite resilient in that way. Like, this is what I'm doing, so just kind of what I'm doing. And I think when you like that, people notice that and they react to you in a different way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've seen people since. Like I say, I mean, Spartan was actually next door to the factory that part of the factory that I used to work in. It wasn't the exact one, but it was part of it. So there's a few guys there who I talked to. So yeah, and I've actually trained a few people who work there now, who kind of know. So people who I didn't know at the time because they're younger, but they actually work in where I used to work, and the same people who used to work there when I was there
are still there.
are still there. Yeah, 20, 30 years later, they're still working on the same job, which is. Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting conversation when they come in. You're like, "Oh, I work at such and such." Oh, it's like, is this bloke there and stuff like that? Oh, he was there. He was only coming through, sort of newly coming through when I was there.
Yeah, John was like in his 20s, and now he's kind of in his 50s, and he's still doing the same thing.
50s
I don't know
still.
who John is, by the way. That was just a random
I was
name.
just gonna say a random name rather than being like such so and so and such. But and then so at this point you were working in the gym, you finished uni and stuff like that. You were working at Spartan. So what point from here did you even think about the idea of opening up your own like facility, your own gym?
Something I spoke about years ago, and it was just one of them things as kids, like, I'm going to do this one day. You know, and you kind of say, oh, I'm going to do that one day. And one of the things I always says, I'm going to open a gym. Just one day I'm going to open a gym. It was just like, nah, yeah, whatever, man, of course you are. And it was just one of those things that I'm a firm believer, if you have something in your mind and you don't, eventually, if you kind of keep doing stuff towards it, eventually you'll achieve it. And I always had in my mind that I love fitness. I always said I was going to own a gym. Could have been a massive coincidence, I don't know, but everything that I'd done just kind of seemed to move along to that point where I actually opened the gym. It wasn't sort of like, yeah, I'm going to open a gym and this is what I'm going to do for the next 5 years or 10 years or whatever. It was just something I had in my mind and just kind of went along, and everything just led up to that point.
So then they had the idea and stuff like that. So what was the sort of the thing that made you sort of just go for it? Because you were saying that you had it in your mind and stuff like that, and everything was shaping up towards it. But I imagine that it was still pretty sort of a big step in a way to go from sort of obviously a pretty secure sort of paid job doing sort of what you enjoy, going to literally opening up your own facility, sort of having to manage your business, market, all of these different stuff and whatnot like that, all these different tangible, like I think that's the right way to use it. But all these different
Probably.
factors come into play. I don't know if it isn't, then someone will correct us, so it'll be fine. But so going from this to all these different factors in which you had to sort of, what were you feeling at the time in which you did like sort of decided to?
This was my business plan. Open a gym, train some clients, it'll be amazing. That was my business plan. I kind of knew nothing about business. I was put in a position where I was offered a contract, and that's where their business was going. And as soon as I seen that contract, everything came back to the factory, where it was like, you have these set hours, you get paid this wage, you get these holidays, and it was just like, I'm not doing that. I've come this far. I'm not going back to that. As much as I love the job, I'm not going back to that.
Yeah.
A big part of what I loved about the personal training was the fact I had the flexibility. I had the freedom to sort of be able to do things off my own back, and that's what I loved about it. So I was in that position where it was just kind of go back to what I didn't want, or do something different. So it was like, I have to find my own facility and I have to do it on my own. And that was pretty much the step that I needed to do. But in terms of, having that sort of plan, it was just, I want to create it somewhere where people could come and train, where they didn't feel intimidated, where they felt comfortable, and I could train clients and everybody was happy. That was as much as my business plan got. And I don't even think I'd even read a business book.
Yeah, so at that point you was
Which
just
was
literally
ridiculous.
Your entire idea and your plan was to literally open it up, have people come in, and then it'll all be all good. It'll be all right.
Yeah, because I do the thing what probably most people going on a business do. You look at someone and you go, I could do that. That's easy. All they've got to do is open the doors and start bringing all this money in, and then do whatever they want in the business. And that was my mindset. I kind of lie. I was ignorant to the fact of how hard business was, and it wasn't until I actually opened it till I went, shit, this is nothing like what I expected. Like not even a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So then, so at the point, so what year was it, and when was it that you actually opened Lyft?
January 2015, 5th of January 2015.
5th of January 2015.
Yeah. I'm speaking now, it's what, 5.5 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that that was that long ago when it opened.
Yeah. It was, I mean, when I opened it, I got the keys on the 30th of December, um, and we had to have it turned around. Bear in mind, you walked into it, and imagine walking into somewhere where the toilet's so dirty, it looks like things are crawling out of it. It was black. I mean, I looked at the toilet when I first walked in, and I was going to replace it. It was so dirty.
Mm.
Luckily, Claire's mum kind of went in with a scrubbing brush and she cleaned it all up. But that was the state of the unit. It was absolutely disgusting.
Mm.
And it took us from the 30th of December until the 5th of January, we had 3 weeks just to turn the whole place around,
Yeah.
completely gut it, paint it, and get the equipment in. Which actually it was hard work, but it was exciting. Yeah, you're just running off adrenaline.
Mm. So then at this point, was it just you and sort of that, way, just you working there, or did you have anyone else? Did you bring anyone in at this point, or?
No, so I had it was just me. So for the first month, it was just me. So from the whole of January, from 6 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, we were open 7 days a week. I just lived at the gym pretty much.
Mm.
At the time, I didn't have kids. Me and Claire just got married, and I just spent the whole month just at the gym.
Yeah. But then,
And then I brought my first coach in sort of mid February time.
yeah. So then, how did that first month go, and how did you sort of feel? Because obviously you would have been under like sort of doing like that many hours and stuff like that. A lot of people would be absolutely like sort of run down and stuff like this. But how did you feel?
Just pure adrenaline, just
Mm.
pure adrenaline. It was just the fact I was waking up every day thinking, got my own business. This is amazing. I got my own business. I was probably in a dream world. And again, because I'd never had any guidance, I didn't really have, you know, no one who could sort of mentor you through it. So I was just in a complete dream world. It was just like, this is amazing. And the whole month was just it, just pure adrenaline.
Yeah.
I didn't feel fatigued. I didn't feel tired. I was probably living off about 4 to 5 hours sleep for the whole month.
Mm.
It was just, yeah.
Because I know that sort of a lot of other like sort of entrepreneurs and business owners, obviously, like sort of they have this initial where I think it's like you probably see a quote that's going around where it's like entrepreneurs are the only types of people who work 80-hour work weeks to avoid working 40-hour work weeks for someone else.
Yeah,
So is that
that's it.
sort of
Yeah, I mean, not 1 hour that I'd done wasn't. I never once looked at the clock, and I haven't since I worked for myself and since I opened my business. There's not one day that I've actually looked at the clock and went, "Wish this day was over." Not one.
mm,
Even when I was working 80-hour weeks, it was. Don't get us wrong, it was tiring. It was a lot of tiring work. I went into it and a lot of long hours, but I never once looked at the clock and thought, hate this, because I
yeah,
knew I was building something. I knew what I was doing was towards a bigger end goal. I was actually building something. I wasn't just doing something. I was building something, and that's the difference.
yeah. So then what was the point in which you sort of realized that your 3-step business plan wasn't really going to plan or wasn't really going to work in a sense, and that you actually started to get into like sort of business and stuff like that and gain a better understanding of how you can actually make this work?
It was probably when I needed to scale. I got to the point where I think I had a couple of coaches in at the time. But the thing is, I had a couple of coaches in, but the business wasn't getting anywhere. I didn't understand how to get more people in. I was kind of still under that mindset of let's build it and they'll come. This was kind of the business advice that was given sort of 10, 15, 20 years ago. Build it and people will come. But
Yeah,
within the digital world now, that's not the case because it's actually easy to build a business. It's easy to develop something now. You can do it for free. You don't need to have a building. Whereas years and years ago, if you had a shop or a building, you would build it and people would come because the local people would come. Local people would come to your business, and not everybody could afford or could go into a business. So, if somewhere set a shop up, then the chances are that person had either money or they were giving it or whatever reason, so people would go to it. Now these days, it's not the same. So I got to the point where I thought, well, yeah, I've built it, people have come, but it's still not where it needs to be. So that's when I kind of knew I needed to do something different. And from that point, I lost a lot of money doing daft things, and trying to kind of be recognized or seen on not Instagram, but on websites and these kind of things. And I invested in the wrong people at the time,
Yeah.
which was very costly.
So then what was the first sort of step that you took to understanding business? Did you end up getting like sort of the Business for Dummies book, or did you go and see someone about it, or what was your sort of initial step?
I read like a few books. I'd kind of, I think the biggest thing is it's for me, it's finding somebody as opposed to finding the information. Information you can get anywhere. It's finding somebody, because this person can work with you and develop your business with you in mind. And the first person that I've seen was Mark Coles. He was doing a mentorship. I'd seen that he worked on personal development. He was a big fan of personal development. And at the time, I was in that position where things weren't going necessarily great in the business, and I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where to turn. I was going through a bit of a dark time myself. I was kind of a little bit out of shape, and the stresses of business were kind of getting to us. We just had Kobe. We just had our second child, and there's a lot of stresses. And I'd seen Mark Coles. I'd seen he was doing these things on personal development. Didn't know a lot about personal development at the time, but for some reason I was attracted to what he was doing. And then I paid quite a bit of money, and I went and spent 6 months with him. I used to go to London once every month, and you meet in a room with other guys, other fitness professionals, and you just kind of thrash it out and devise a plan. And that was kind of where I would say the business side of it started.
Yeah.
Even though I'd been in business for 3 years prior, 2.5, 3 years prior, I wouldn't have classed that as being, although I was in business, I would say that 2 year when I first started that was when the business development started.
That's when you
Certainly my
essentially,
personal development.
when you sort of put your business cap on and started to think about things differently.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
then
That's definitely when that started.
So then around this time, is this when you started to get into personal development as well?
That's kind of when I went into personal development. I've always been I've always been into personal development because I've always been a trainer in health. I've always been interested in health, but there was always something missing, and it was that personal development side of it. And that's kind of what got me into it mainly, because I knew there was something. I knew I needed to do something more, and it wasn't necessarily in the business. It was more for me. I needed to do something in me for things to change.
So, and then say at this point, is this when sort of you started to see sort of, obviously, because at this point, once you had your business and your personal development cap on, at this point, is this when you started to see things a lot differently and stuff like that? And sort of, you were a lot more sort of conscious of all the different parts of a business, like the marketing and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was always conscious of it. I always knew marketing and all these things were a big part of it. I just didn't understand it. And again, I'll take kind of health as an example. You can go on the internet and you can find any information you want. You can go and find anything about anything in health. But where the hell do you start? Where do you start? What do you do? Who do you trust? That's where I was at in business.
Yeah.
So this is why I can relate a lot with people who, from the health side of things, people who kind of look and they can't find the information they want, and they don't trust people because they've been burnt in the past. I was in that position, but from the business side of it, I didn't know who to trust, didn't know where to start. So I always kind of knew about it. It was just, again, it was finding that person who would say, right, this is where we need to be. Once we get here, then we can move here. And that's when everything just started going, making a bit more sense.
Sort of like someone to show you the ropes or show you a way in which you can get to where you want to be at some point.
Yeah, pretty much. And say, no, just forget about this because that's long term. it's good to have that in mind, but we need to do this work here. So think of that. This is where you want to be, but we need to start here. So we need to kind of reverse engineer it and find out where you're at, and
Yeah.
then build it up there. Again, exactly the same as fitness. Somebody comes with a goal that we want to get fit and healthy, or whatever it is. We set a goal over here, but then we started here, and we give people strategies to get here. But the problem is, people want to start here,
Mm.
and this is kind of where I was at with business. I wanted to start here and have everything, as opposed to, well, actually start here. And this is kind of, but it's having that someone to actually help you with there and start where you're at.
Mm-hmm. And then, so at what point did you in what year was this, sorry? Around what time was this?
2000, I think I started the mentorship course, it was 2018. March 2018, I think it was.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I remember sort of around this time because I was training there and stuff like that. And then one thing I was going to ask also is that sort of throughout sort of the opening of Lift and stuff like that, have you sort of, I imagine that sort of now being a business owner and being in sort of this little bubble in a way, how many like sort of opportunities you were like sort of, not opportunities you were given, but like sort of what different doorways opened up in a way, if that makes sense? And sort of like what opportunities you ended up sort of having because you were sort of in this position.
Um, I suppose, I don't know, it's quite hard to say really in terms of opportunities. I would say probably more, not so much opportunities, but it opens your mind up to what's achievable, as opposed to something coming, putting something on your doorstep. So you will, everybody will have opportunities in some fashion, but to me, it's more open your mind, because I was close to opportunities. I probably missed a ton of opportunities in the past because I had a closed mindset. I had a fixed mindset. Because I developed that and changed it, and then had an open mindset or a growth mindset, which then allows you to see the opportunities. And yeah, I mean, it's more, for the opportunities could be something like meeting somebody. You meet somebody, you develop that relationship, and over time that creates opportunities. When I was in the fixed mindset, it was just, I've got to do it all myself. I've got to be here. I can't go anywhere. I've got to be in the gym. I've got to do this. And I've got to put my head down. I've got to get stuff done. But actually, when you kind of start creating opportunities, I start having an open mindset. It's like, okay, actually, do you know what it is? I need to be over there, because that's where all the same people with the same mindset are. So I need to get myself over there, introduce myself, and then that'll create opportunities in time. So I think from that perspective, it was more having a different mindset to how opportunities could be created.
Yeah. So then,
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I know exactly. It made perfect sense. So instead of like sort of the actual opportunities be given through open and lift and sort of the like the journey that you went on, it was that you sort of had a mindset switch because of lift and stuff like that. Is that you started to see opportunities more often rather than sort of create them.
100%. Yeah, so exactly. So as an example, I look back now and I could think, I can see opportunities that I've had and I've missed. And I can say, actually, if I kind of explored that a little bit more, this would have created a better opportunity, which would have done X, Y, and Z. I didn't see it at the time. Now I'm looking back and thinking, if I'd seen that, that would have changed things, or that would have been different, or whatever it is. Not that I regret it, because I don't, because I think we all have a journey. That is right. I think everybody goes through a journey and they end up in the place that they're at because of the journey that they've had. So I don't regret anything. I think everything was done for a reason. But looking back on it, you think, yeah, I would have had an opportunity there. So now I'm open to that opportunity and looking for opportunities, and I know that they will be there. It's just grasping them when you find them.
Yeah, and it's just noticing them in the present and actually realizing how good of an opportunity it is, sort of right now, to do this certain thing, rather than sort of get a year down the line and looking back, seeing it as a good opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
So then I think that takes us up nicely to sort of now, because recently you've actually you've decided to close lift. So I just want to sort of talk about that and just sort of how you were feeling about that and what made you sort of decide to go ahead with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with lift was initially, again, my reasons for opening it was because I wanted to create a place where people could come and they felt confident and good, and we get good results for people. And I did achieve that. We did achieve. I spent a lot of time, and I sacrificed a lot of family time to achieve that. And when lockdown kicked in, I was put in a position from going from never at home, always at work, to not actually having any work because it just got closed down on the Friday. And on the Monday, I was a full-time dad. And it was just a complete change of circumstances in life. But when it started, it made me appreciate what I've actually missed. And I kind of sat back and thought, I mean, this wasn't an overnight thing, but I kind of sat back and thought, do you know what it is? Nothing is more important than my family, because I have so much here. I'm trying to create something here, but I'm missing actually all of this. And this is the most important part. And the only way that I could get this into any sort of position that I wanted to walk away from it was to go back into it and spend another 12 months or whatever there. And I wasn't prepared to sacrifice this.
Yeah.
I realize this is going to be on a podcast now and no one can actually see my hand movements, but I didn't want to sacrifice what I had to and something else. I thought, well, I've got a lot of passion and I've got a lot of value to give people. So I've got to find a different way of doing that. I've got to find a different way to reach people and help more people, but not sacrifice the most important thing in my life. And that's kind of where I'm at now. So I'm in that position now where I'm actually making that transition.
Yeah. So then how about did you feel when sort of when you were like sort of clearing out and stuff like that, and sort of, and when you like when you handed back the keys, sort of how were you feeling during that point?
Emotional. Kind of emotional, but kind of relieved at the same time, because at the end of the day, that has been literally my home for the past 5.5 years. I've put a lot of blood, sweat and tears into there, literally a lot of blood, sweat and tears have went into that. So to say there would be no emotions tied to it would be a lie. But at the same time, it was that I knew it was that part of the chapter in my life that I had to close to move on.
Yeah.
So there was that. It was a kind of, I wouldn't say a sense of relief, but it was that something has been lifted from my shoulders, which has been there for a long, long time, and it's now allowed me to reassess my life, reassess everything in my life, and then make a plan moving forward.
Yeah. So then that sort of takes us on to, so what are your plans moving forward now? Sort of, have you got an idea of what you're wanting to sort of do moving forward now that sort of with Lyft sort of being like closed and sort of that chapter essentially closed in a way? What are you sort of moving on to, or what have you got an idea or?
Yeah. So I mean, what I want to do is sort of develop the same kind of thing with Lyft, but more on an online basis. So, health and fitness based business that can help people, help people who want to change their lifestyles, want to change their lives. And eventually what I want to go into as well is actually help people in business. So one of the biggest struggles I've had personally is not having somebody. If I had somebody from day one, it would have been a lot less painful. I want to help people realize that there is help out there and there's actually genuine people who want to help. Yes, there's a lot of crap in the market, but it's the same as any market. There's a lot of cowboys, there's a lot of sort of people who just want to take your money. And I've been stung by a lot of people in the past. So what I want to do eventually is go into that and actually help people in business, whether as a personal trainer. I'm a personal trainer coming through. But initially, I want to build a successful online health and fitness business, because I think it's such an important part of the world. And I think, especially now that since we've had lockdown, a lot of people are realizing the importance of mental health and physical health. And the experience that I've got can really deliver something amazing online. And like we spoke about the other day, we spoke about sort of assembling a team.
Like the Avengers.
Assembling it like the Avengers, which this is, I want to, if I can help, if we can build a team, if we can build a fantastic team of people coming through, then it helps other people, sort of like yourself, developing your brand and developing your skills. And that's pushing you on in life as well. As soon as we bring a personal trainer in, then that's the same thing. We're helping that personal trainer develop their skills and their brand and all along. offering this amazing community of professionals that can help the outside world.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good. And then just to sort of finish off with, so if you could say, imagine if there was someone sort of in the same position you were in, sort of sort of feeling stuck in a factory job and stuff like that, but have like sort of that feeling of they can go on to do like sort of better things, or have like in the sense that they have a higher purpose in a way. What would be the one thing that what advice would you give to them in a way?
I think you kind of got to go with what you feels right.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to you've got to look at your lifestyle. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I mean, for me personally, it's not for everybody. A lot of people are driven by money. A lot of people want to create this fantastic lifestyle where they've got swimming pools and jacuzzi, jet skis, and all these kind of things. For me, that's never been my sole purpose. My sole purpose has been I want to create a freedom of lifestyle, a lifestyle of freedom. That is my goal initially, to create a lifestyle of freedom. So people need to look at you. So you need to look at what's your purpose. What is your purpose for doing it, and then going for it. Don't hold on to something that's maybe holding you back from what you really want, because you'll just end up resenting it.
Yeah.
If there's something you really want to do, if there's something you really want to achieve, whether it is business, a career, it doesn't matter what it is, then you've got to just do it, because you're better off trying, seeing what happens, than not trying at all and regretting it. If I look back now and thinking, I was still in that factory and thinking, man, if I'd just done that 12 years ago, 14 years ago, I wonder where I'd be at now. I would hate to think like that. I'd rather get to the point where I think, that didn't work. Damn it. That didn't work. Damn it. What do I do? Okay, well, I adapt it. I change it. I learn from the failures. I learn from mistakes that I've made. And then, you develop and you develop and you develop it. But you've always got to keep pushing forward. You've always got to keep looking for the next step. Once you get comfortable, that's when things start to deteriorate, because you're comfortable. You've always got to look for something different. And if it's money you're looking at, and to me personally, I think that would be the wrong way of doing it. Look for something more you can offer in value, a deeper purpose, a deeper meaning, and offer more to the world. That, to me, that is where motive comes from, and this is where purpose comes from.
Yeah. So that was amazing. So yeah, that's all I've got for today. Unless is there anything else that you want to mention at all, or?
No, not at all. No, I think if anybody's kind of listening and looking to get into business or anything like that, there's a lot of good people out there who can help. Don't do it alone. Seriously, do not do it alone. If there was one biggest mistake I made, is trying to do it alone. Being a stubborn mule and trying to do everything alone. Seek help, get help, and just have fun. Have fun with what you do. I spent a long time not having fun, and that's the worst part about it. If you're not having fun, you end up resenting it. So you've got to have some form of fun. Yes, you've got to put the work in, but if it feels like work, the chances are it's not right. You do have to do the work, but it should be work that makes you feel fulfilled. If it doesn't make you feel fulfilled, look at why it's not making you feel fulfilled, and then change it.
Yeah.
And then that's
What a way to end an episode.
Boom boom.
That was like a mic drop moment there.
A mic drop moment.
But anyway, so that was amazing. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Aaron. It was an absolute pleasure. And maybe we can catch up again. And we'll be catching up again all the time anyway. But maybe do one of these again in 6 months, 12 months. Because I'd be really interested to see where your podcast goes. I think it'll be pretty amazing. I think it'll be a lot of people can learn a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Oh well.
I know what guests you've got coming on as well, so it'll be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and I've even got a few big ones in mind also in the future. Once I've got it all sort of.
You've got to have your high-end targets. You've got to have your ambitions. You've got to just reach and just put yourself out there and think, right, what's the worst that can happen? The worst can happen, somebody says no.
Yeah, okay. Exactly.
and I'll ask somebody else, and that person might go, yeah, go on then. Go on, yeah,
Like,
go on.
yeah, why not? So,
Go on, yeah, I'll help you out.
yes, I just thought I'd mention tune in next week when we've got Elon Musk talking about. No, I'm joking. Imagine
You never know. You just never know.
third episode in, just got Elon Musk casually just talking on Zoom about.
Your status would just go.
I know at that point, literally, it was just such a massive growth. Like that's probably the best podcast growth strategy you could ever have. Just get Elon Musk on your third episode.
Be an opportunist. Send him an email. You never know. He could just be checking his emails out one day thinking, I wonder how I can help somebody in life. And your email pings up and says, Elon, would you like to call my podcast? I'm just starting. He goes, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Just making a note
Never
now
know.
to email like the top 1% of the whole, the top 1% of the richest business owners and entrepreneurs and stuff like that.
You just never know.
So where can the people find you at if they want to see more from you then, Keir?
So I spend a lot of time, well, I don't spend a lot of time, but I do spend time on Instagram on my stories. So you can find us on Instagram. It's Keir_Wotherspoon. And then I have a blog as well on medium.com. So if you check Medium out, I do put a lot of blogs on there. I do have an email list as well. So what I'll do is I've just done an ebook actually. I've just written an ebook. So what I'll do is once I've sorted all that out, I'll let you put that on your show notes if that's okay. And then people can go and check my ebook out.
So all the links carry on, sorry.
Yeah. No.
I was going to say, because all the links will be down in the, I say I'm pointing down now, but obviously for those who are listening purely on podcast won't be able to see that. But for people on the podcasts, the links will all be in the show notes and stuff like that. All you need to do is swipe down or swipe up to go down even. And then if you're on YouTube watching the actual video of this and the audio, then it'll all be in the description and stuff like that. It'll be under a little bit that says Keir's stuff or Keir's links or somewhere like that.
I'll probably spend more time writing. I like to write, so I do more blogs and emails. I do videos as well, but like my passion is writing, so I do a lot more writing. So when I do post some things, there's kind of a lot of content, a lot of writing in there. But I do videos, say on Instagram stories and things. Talk probably a bit more about my life and my crazy kids.
Yeah, so if you want to hear anything more about Keir or see where sort of things are going in the future, be sure to follow him on all of those links, or some of them if you don't like reading blog posts and you just like watching Instagram stories, whatever your fancy is. But anyway, so thank you very much. That was amazing.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for inviting me on.
Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you do have any feedback or ideas for future guests, please drop me a message via any of the social media platforms listed in either the podcast show notes or the description of the YouTube video, depending on how you're listening or watching this outro. But that's all for now. I hope you have a great day, night or morning, depending on when and wherever you're listening to this episode from. Talk to you all next week.